Hi folks, DeeDee here, and for this video I want to do some jelly printing. I have a few various acrylic paints and some mark making tools, some foam stamps, some rolling stamps, a block that I made, and some Donna Downey stencils. And I like to, excuse me, use pretty specific paints actually. I really like the Dina Wakley heavy body paints for jelly printing. I like how smooth they are when they're done, and I can kind of draw and stamp and do some things on top of them. And then I also just used, this is the first time I've tried it, a Martha Stewart's Craft Satin Paint, I think it is, and I really liked that too. I have condensed about 35 minutes of jelly printing down into 2 minutes here. The instruction is not on jelly printing specifically. I just wanted to get some backgrounds going and like play around a bit, and then get to using some stencils to create a really fun whimsical background that I could kind of build on top of. So I'm just going through the motions and some paints and some textures and things like that, and picking up some layers of paint, and yeah, just having a good time. I mean, I really love experimenting with the colors and doing color blocking, and I'm just working on a basic cardstock, Michael's cardstock. You could work on any kind of paper you like, of course. But yeah, I love how smooth it is, but it has a little bit of rigidity to it so that I can kind of keep building on top of it later. And yeah, that's it. Just doing some mark making and stamping. And if you like jelly printing or you want to get into jelly printing, Donna actually has her own jelly printing class. So pop on over to the studio and get that. Here is the stencil that I'm going to be using for the main portion of this video. That is one of Donna's new stencils from her Artistry Series. So I'm going to slow the video back down here now, and you'll see exactly what I'm going for. So after I have some like kind of fun colorful backgrounds, I'm adding in this dark blue. It's kind of like a Payne's gray, but it's called Midnight. And it's really, really intense, and I really love it as a stark contrast to all the bright colors that I was working with. And so I'm going to pick up kind of the paint that's left over on the edges, and it's fun, and I'm using various backgrounds. And this first step of the Midnight is kind of just to get a little bit of residual paint left on my jelly plate, which I really love. That's kind of where the fun comes from for me. I really like to have, you know, some kind of interesting things happening in the backgrounds and stuff like that. So I actually stop here, and I left that paint to dry on my jelly plate. Now you can't use a heat gun to let it heat. You have to actually walk away and then let it dry, and you come back. And I used a teal over it, and I put down my cardstock kind of where I knew that main part of the stencil was. I wanted the trees to be in my background, and I'm not going to let the rest of the paint sit there. I do want that paper to really stay there for a while, so it will get all of the paint kind of attached to it, and I want it to pull back all the paint. I don't want it to leave any paint behind, because I'm going for a very specific look, and you'll see when I flip the paper over. So now, using some of the other backgrounds, I'm color blocking and kind of picking up. Yeah, see, I'll go through my pages and kind of decide which ones still need work. And yeah, now I'm just going to color block with those and kind of add in this like teal and navy or midnight blue kind of feel that I know is going to happen. There, you can kind of see it start to happen there. Color blocking. I really like the way that one came out. I put it in the middle instead of against an edge, and here's what I was aiming for. So once you leave a ghost print to dry, which would be the second layer of paint, and then you put a contrasting color on top, whether it's a lot lighter, a lot darker, or opposite, then you let them kind of like marinate and bond back together because it's all acrylic paint, then you get this effect, and it's just fun. It's amazing. Definitely give it a go. Let some of your paint layers dry before you come back with a clean one on your jelly plate. Then I got out a piece of watercolor paper, Canson watercolor paper, And I used Yoo-Hoo and my sewing machine to attach the two together. And I wasn't even exactly sure what I was going for. I just kind of wanted to build a little bit of a whimsical scene, but not so scene-like, because I already had this almost kind of very specific scene in the background with the trees. So I'm using a rolling stamp and some titanium white fluid acrylic paint by Golden, and I was using the stamp to roll some dots across it, and then when I smushed what was left onto my underpaper so that I could use it at a later date, I really liked the effect it got, and I was just using the wrapper from the stencil, the Donna Downey wrapper, and so I did it on my page too, and it's a very organic sort of feel, and I really enjoyed how that came out. I'm going to do a bit of some image transferring here, and I'm trying to build on top of that scene that's happening in the background from the stencil and the jelly printing without losing it. I want the idea to be there, but maybe not so specific, like, look, this is the exact stencil I used, I did this, I did that. I'm kind of creating more of like a feel rather than a literal sense of the term scene. So I'm using some matte medium and some old book text to try to get an image transfer. And sometimes if the papers are too old or they're too glossy or they're too brittle, then image transfers don't always work out. So actually what I need to do, see it, yeah, I'm going to try it a second time. And actually the parts that do work, it looks pretty cool where the letters are overlapped. And also keep in mind that the text is going to be backwards because it's an image transfer, and so on the back it's actually flipped over on the back of the paper. But what I was going to say is I actually kind of need to go through my books and mark which ones make good image transfers and which don't. And if you have a bunch of a bunch of book text and like vintage images, maybe out of dictionary pages or something, definitely test them out before you put them on your artwork, because sometimes you put them down and then the whole thing just comes up, or sometimes you put them down and you can hardly get anything up. And it's just the different types of papers that have been used and how old some of them are and if they're glossy and all kinds of different things. So this wasn't the best image transfer, but it ended up lending itself really well to my whole piece because I wasn't going for something super specific. So it's what I mentioned earlier, I'm sort of just implying kind of, and I just wanted those words maybe to represent like clouds in the sky against the white background, or the white smush, or something. I'm just having fun. And sometimes that's what we need to do too. So I used matte medium to do my image transfer twice, and then I went over it with matte medium. Now I have some archival ink. It's black soot and a hand-carved stamp, and just stamping in some X's or plus signs. This is a Viva Las Vegas stamp, and I'm really loving how everything is coming together with that new Donna Downey stencil. This little piece of paper here is actually from a set of ATCs that I did before for the Donna Downey Artist Gang, and it's just a scrap that I couldn't part with. I have a container on my desk that has a bunch of scraps and like vintage papers and things in it that I just pull from fairly frequently. Oh, I know, I ended up placing that along the bottom stitch, but after seeing it on that right-hand side, I really liked that. Maybe I should have gone with that. That's all right. Hindsight, maybe I'll remake this piece or something a little bit similar. I did have fun with it, and I enjoyed the outcome, so that was great. I put that down using some Yoo-Hoo. Oh, when I did fussy cut, I used the Tim Holtz scissors to fussy cut thicker things. Sometimes the blades are a little bit thick, but it did okay. Glue everything down. Make sure it's exactly where I want it. And then I'm going to go back to this kind of apple green color Martha Stewart paint, and there didn't end up being any in this background, even though I used a bit of it while I was jelly printing. But I really love, like right there on the right on my underpaper, you can see where I clean my brayer before I move on to the next color. And I really enjoyed how all three colors, excuse me, played together there, the apple green, the teal, and the midnight. So I thought I would incorporate that into my piece. And I like it. I do. So I colored in some dots on the inside of those scallops with the green, and now I'm going back in since it's dry and adding in the white. The green looked a little bit intense in the bottom there, so just knock it back a little bit with a spot of white in the middle of each spot of green. And here, this kind of sucked. This is a scarlet lime pen that is supposed to be really great for mixed media, and unfortunately, it bled all over my project. I have no idea what I did, or maybe it got too hot or something. I do live in the desert, so that kind of sucked, but I just masked it with some more of those crosses. And now I'm going in and kind of scraping in some of that white that I have left over, and I'm mixing it with the green. And I really like how that feels too. And it's a great addition. This is High Flow Golden Acrylic in teal. And I wondered what some drips would look like, and I knew that if I didn't like them but I used teal because the whole thing is teal, it would be easier to conceal. And it looks great. I enjoy it. I like tone on tone. I like it a lot. And tone on tone is like white on white or teal on teal, and maybe there's a tiny bit difference in hue, but maybe not. And you just kind of get the feeling that there's something there. And this is a excuse me, a little bit early in the morning here. This is a Viva Las Vegas stamp, and it is a girl floating away with balloons, and it was inspired by street art, by graffiti. And most rubber stamps stamp really well. The problem here is the reason the stamp didn't come out is because I already have these layers going on my page, and there's layers between the paper where there's a void that the stamp can't get to, and then there's texture too. So I use the stamp as a guide, and then I can go back in with a Posca paint marker, or if you have something else like a Liquitex or a Molotov. Molotov. Please do not work on your artwork with Molotov cocktails. A Molotov paint marker, or any paint marker that you have, then you can darken that up fairly easily. And there's the end of my whimsical scene. Pure imagination. Thanks so much.